The Lab.
A special welcome to today's coffee break discussion. And television certainly has a lot of advantages over the radio in many ways, as you might know, and particularly for those who are joining us today. If we were on television, you might enjoy this program twice or three times as much.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure everyone's heard of the famous saying that one picture is worth 1,000 words. Here's one thing we never seem to be able to demonstrate on the radio. Well, I hope that now you can understand what we're getting at.
Wouldn't you like to know what's going on? Well, let's not keep everyone in suspense. Today, we're going to talk about gestures and facial expressions in terms of the way they're used in different cultures and the different meanings they have.
Okay, so let's begin with some basic gestures which differ in the West and Japan. An obvious one that comes to mind first is pointing to one's nose with an index finger, which is commonly used in Japan to confirm if the other person is referring to the speaker himself. I wonder if it means the same thing to you in America or in England.
Well, for me, it means nothing other than the person's nose, actually. In England, we generally tend to point to the middle of our chest instead, and we can use either the forefinger, the index finger, or we can use our thumb. Mm-hmm. What about in America, Sue?
I think it's the same in America. And another familiar gesture among Japanese women particularly is covering their mouths when they laugh. Mm-hmm. It may be regarded as maybe good manners in Japan, is that right? Mm-hmm. But in the States, it isn't done very much. We might do it to show great embarrassment or if you're laughing at an inappropriate time. But I remember that my first grade teacher actually scolded the girls when they did that. The feeling was that it might look a little babyish or maybe coquettish if an older person did it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see. And what about the way you use your fingers when counting? I think that's also different, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, in England, it's just the other way around. We start with making a fist, and then we open the fist up as we count. In Japan, you seem to open your hand first, and then fold your fingers as you go on counting. What's more, I've seen people in Japan count up to 10 on one hand, something which I've never seen in England. We use both hands there.
Then if you want to count up to 20, you have to rely on your toes?
I suppose so, yes.
Or you could just start back on the second hand again, 15, 16. It's the same in the States.
And in relation to the fingers in the Japanese culture or maybe Japanese behavioral pattern, I should say, a thumb can sometimes indicate one's boss and a small finger could indicate one's sweetheart.
Really? That's very interesting. In England, when we want to indicate that something is all right or that we approve of something or something's been successful, we stick our thumbs up. In fact, there's even a colloquial expression in English to get the thumbs up or to give the thumbs up, which means to be allowed to proceed in some way or to proceed with some action. Conversely, of course, if we point our thumb downwards, it's a sign of disagreement or disapproval or failure.
Mm-hmm. And what about waving your hands? And I think when you want to say goodbye to your friends or someone, then how do you use your hand gesture?
I think in the same way a Japanese would ask someone to come.
That's right, yes. In fact, I remember when I came to Japan, I met the daughter of a friend of mine, and I wanted to say goodbye to her, so I extended my hand, and I signaled, as we do in England to little children, goodbye. And she crossed the street, she came towards me, and I was very puzzled. Why was she coming? And she asked me, what do you want? And so we were both puzzled, really.
That's interesting to note. 今日はgestures and facial expressions というふうなことでお話をしておりますが、日本で普通に使われておりますジェスチャーが、それが西洋の人ですね、アメリカ、イギリスの人にとっては、全く違う意味になるというふうなことがあります。例えば今もお話ししましたが、日本では、こちらにいらっしゃいというふうに、 手招きをしますが、そのジェスチャーがイギリスではさようならという、つまり、グッバイということになりますね。そこでトニーさんは子供にそういうつもりで、手を振ったところ、子供が道の向こう側からこちら側にやってきたということで、とっても当惑をしたということを今おっしゃいましたが、つまり、こちら日本語ではいらっしゃい、日本ではいらっしゃいという時の手招きですね。それがイギリスではさようならという時のジェスチャーになります。それからよく言われますことですが、私ですかというふうに自分を指さす場合に、日本ではどういうわけか、自分の鼻の頭を指さしますが、向こうの人は、胸を指しますね。そして、親指で胸を指すというのが普通のようです。それからまた、give the thumbs up, get the thumbs up というふうな表現が出てきましたが、親指を下に向けますと、これは、相手に了解を得られなかった、つまりうまくいかなかったという時に使われるジェスチャーですね。そして親指をうんと高く上に上げますと、うまくいきましたよ、つまり了承が取れましたよという時に使われますね。そういうふうに、指の使い方もいろいろ違いがあるようですね。もちろん皆さんもご存知だと思いますが、実際に数を数える時も日本の場合には、指を、手を広げまして、そして中に折りたたむようにして数えますけれども、英米の人は逆に最初に手を握りまして、そして親指から順番に指を外に、開くようにして数を数えますね。そういった違いも覚えておきましょう。
We were talking about thumbs, me to mention another interesting gesture commonly seen among English-speaking people, and that's twiddling your thumbs.
What does it mean?
Well, you fold your hands with the fingers interlocked and then sort of revolve your thumbs around each other, making small circles with your thumbs.
And what does it indicate, I wonder?
Well, I hope our listeners are not twiddling their thumbs while listening to this program.
So you mean we hope listeners are not bored?
Not bored, right.
Yes, and so we can see that if we go outside our own culture, we face the very real danger of confusing others, and in turn being confused by them, simply because the behavior patterns of our two cultures will differ in certain respects. And the gestures we use run the risk of being misinterpreted, I suppose.
And I think an example of that might be the so-called Japanese smile.
Yes, that's right.
I knew you would say that.
Well, when we first come to Japan, we think that Japanese people must be the happiest in the world because they seem to be constantly smiling.
That's right.
And I think in Japan, a smile is used when a person is embarrassed or disappointed, even angry, or I've noticed also when people don't know each other very well, just to keep a pleasant expression, people smile a lot more than we would. A Westerner would interpret any smile, I think, as being happiness. I think I've learned to tell a joyful Japanese smile from ordinary Japanese smile, but we have to be careful. For one thing, when people announce bad news, such as a death in the family.
That's right. It is surprising, isn't it?
Yes, it's rather shocking and could be rude if you smile. It's maybe meant as a friendly or consoling smile, but we usually would put on a sad face when we hear of bad news.
That's right.
So that reminds me of someone who said a Japanese smile is just a frown turned upside down.
Yes, that's very true. From my own experience, I'd say frowns and smiles have really got a lot in common here in Japan. As you say, Sue, the smile often isn't meant as a sign of pleasure or humor, but instead it hides embarrassment or regret, discomfort, even anger, as you were saying.
And another thing that contributes just as much as facial expressions to non-verbal communication is an eye contact, and I have noticed that among Japanese women particularly, when they talk, they tend to avoid looking into the eyes of the other person, whereas when I observe people in the West, they tend to look straight into the face of the person they are talking to, and thus it have any social preference? I mean, talking straight into the face of the person you're talking to.
Yes, I think not looking in the person's face could be misinterpreted. If we look off to the side, it might show a disinterest or preoccupation. What I find even more irritating is when people look down when they talk to me. For one thing, if we look down, the person listening might think that you're looking somewhere at their body, or you might think that there's something wrong with their clothes.
You're looking at something what we shouldn't.
Right. Or it could, to avoid looking in someone's eyes, could appear to be a sign of insincerity or even dishonesty.
Oh, really?
And I'm sure that's not the real intention.
But in our culture, it can mean that. It can mean that, but usually it just indicates the shyness on the part of the speaker, nothing else. 今、親指のことを話しましたが、そのもう一つ twiddling one's thumbs という表現がありますね。皆さんが今この放送をお聞きになりながらそういうジェスチャーをなさっていなければいいですねということをおっしゃいましたが、これは4本の指を両方の手で組みまして、そして親指を交互に回すことですね。これは、どうも退屈した時、面白くない時に欧米の人がするジェスチャーだということですね。それから、人と話をするときに相手の顔を見る、あるいは目を見るということも非常に大切なことで、英米の文化ではそういうふうにするのがいいとされておりますが、どうしても私たち日本人は恥ずかしい場合には下を向いてしまいますね。それから、Japanese smile、これも非常に罰の悪い時とか、あるいは困った時、あるいは時には非常に不愉快な時にも、我々はにっこりとすることがありますけれども、西洋ではそういうことがないということで、a Japanese smile is just a frown turned upside down。 つまり、目の上のところに我々でも何か不愉快な時には8の字のシワを寄せますが、それを逆にしたようなものだというふうなことを言った人がありますが、日本人のそのスマイル、笑みというものをそういうふうに表現をしたというのは、むしろ西洋の人が不愉快だなと、あるいは残念だなと思うような時に私たちが顔に笑みをたたえるということがあるから、そういうふうに言ったわけですね。Okay, so much for the discussion, and let's turn our eyes to some useful expressions relating to gestures or facial expressions, Tony.
Right, well, one that springs to mind is the expression, it raised a few eyebrows. And we use this when it's a surprise. People are surprised, they raise their eyebrows, and this has given rise to this expression.
What about to shrug one's shoulders, and what does it mean, sir?
I don't know.
I don't know, and I hope I hope you do know what it means, but what it indicates is...
I do know that it means I don't know.
That's very funny. And what about saying something like with tongue in cheek? He said something with tongue in his cheek. What does it mean?
That's often used when what we're saying isn't true, or we're joking about something with somebody.
But pretending to be serious.
Pretending to be serious, absolutely.
To shrug one's shoulder、 両方の肩を軽く上げることがありますが、これは私は知りませんという時に使われますね。それから to raise a few eyebrows、 これで相手の人を驚かせましたというふうな時に使われます。Well, I'm sorry, friends, but that's all the time we have today, and we really hope you enjoyed being with us. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
担当は東後勝明先生。お相手はスー・ワンウィグさんとアントニー・ニューエルさんでした。英語会話を終わります。